Welcome to Carry the Mat, where we pursue meaning in life, legacy, and leadership. Join us as we seek to learn some of life's most difficult yet valuable hard-earned lessons from men and women who have experienced obstacles and victories firsthand, striving to serve one another based on our unique, God-given abilities, not interested in merely talking about it, but determined to be about it. If that sounds like you, then let's carry the mat together. Every man dies, but not every man truly lives. Now to your hosts, Ben Brandenburg and Daniel Moss. This is Carry the Mat.
Well, guys, welcome in. This is Ben Brandenburg here with my co-host Daniel Moss, and we are thrilled today to be joined by my good friend Derek Chitwood. Derek, Daniel did a nice teaser for Derek, but he's a good friend of mine, and he also is just a guy that started a business way back since the college days, and I've tracked with the Peach State Pride story for a long time. But welcome to the podcast, Derek.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank y'all for having me. First of all, just thankful to have the opportunity to sit down with you guys right now. And BB, I've known you since you were still in high school when you were dating Mobley, and Mobley was a friend of mine at Georgia College, and of course Daniel known your family for a little while too. But I just appreciate you guys having me, and BB, of course, I'm, just so proud of you and what you're doing right now, and where God's moving you, and just first of all, obviously my heart goes out to the things going on in your life, but at the same time too, just proud to see what you're doing with it, and how God's working in your family right now. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for being here, and we'd love to hear more about Peach State Pride. But you mentioned college, and I would come up. Mobley's a year older than me, so when she was at Georgia College as a freshman, I would come up when I was a senior in high school, and you guys, befriended me, and I felt like I was an adopted member of whether it was Bobcat Village, whether it was I think it's Parkhurst, the dorm. You guys really looked out for me, and I felt like I went to Georgia College, and we've maintained those friendships to this day. Talk a little bit about Peach State Pride and how the roots go all the way back to the Georgia College days. I know that story, but I'd love to hear kind of the evolution of Peach State Pride and how it really that idea you had. Where did that come from, and how did you get things started? What was the first steps for you?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Franklin County, up north of Athens, right on the South Carolina line, up near Lake Hartwell, and my grandfather had a peach orchard, just a small 3-acre peach orchard. We're not talking about some of those middle Georgia orchards that have hundreds, if not thousands, of acres, and but just a small orchard that was the center point of his retired life, and really the center of the Chitwood family's life. I mean, we kind of everything kind of revolved around peach season, where in our family, even though it was a small orchard, it takes a lot of it definitely takes a lot of labor to handle 3 acres of peaches, believe it or not. But it was always the conversation around the weather. It was always conversation around the dinner table, and we kind of planned our vacations around peach season, and so always, growing up in that environment. I mean, I was at the peach orchard, every summer from the time that I can remember, and we just hung out in the peach stand as little kids, and were around it. And my grandmother ran the stand, and my grandfather was down in the orchard, and when I was 12 years old, started doing some small chores to kind of help the operation. And then 12 years old when I started picking, and did a few chores kind of leading up to that, but started picking peaches with my grandfather when I was 12. And we get out there at 7 a.m. Every day of summer, and that was my life. Each and every summer, played sports, did all those things, but from 7 a.m. to about noon, every day of the summer for the most part, I was there with my brothers, and my grandfather, and we spent time walking through the dewy grass, and just walking around trees and listening to him tell stories. And it was a real special thing. And I miss it to this day. My grandfather passed away in 2017, so 6 years ago now, and it just feels like a different life in a lot of ways. But when you connect in that way and you have those special moments, um, it sticks with you. And I went to Georgia College in Milledgeville. I went to Franklin County High School, and when I graduated, I was the only one from my graduating class. Went down to Milledgeville, and you start to realize that, I started to realize that my experiences there, being around agriculture, and specifically being involved with the peach industry, was unique. Especially, when you get to college, and the majority of people down there from Metro Atlanta, or just in general, didn't have those experiences. And you start to reflect on that, and it became a point of pride in my life, and something I was extremely thankful for. And each summer when I was in college, would go back and work with my grandfather, every summer too, and even after college a little bit. But you know, because of that background, I was always particularly proud of being from the Peach State. Just in general, probably more so than a lot of people, because it was such a big part of our life. But just in general, there's a lot of people out there that are proud of being from Georgia, and I was always proud of being from Georgia, and really kind of grew that pride, in my time at Georgia College. I'd always take a different way from Franklin County to Milledgeville, just try to see those small towns and different areas of the state, and kind of developed a real interest in that, and meeting people from different areas of the state. Just kind of open your eyes and mind to the differences and the cultures of each area. Um, so that was kind of that's kind of the root of, where Peach State Pride came from. So
As far as the whole peach industry, how did your grandfather get involved in that? I mean, is that something that his father was doing, or is it one
yeah,
day he just decided to get into it? Because it's a real niche industry. Like, you don't hear that often.
yeah, no, it's not. It's not a huge industry in the state of Georgia. Obviously, it's an important. Um, we are the peach state, and there's a lot of history there. But most people are in a different form of agriculture when they're in ag. But my grandfather grew up at the base of Currahee Mountain back in the Great Depression, and there was and the peach industry was really big up in that area at that time. There was an orchard called Shores Orchard near Cornelia, and I can't remember what years. It was early 40s before they moved to Livonia, um, in around 44 or 45. Before they moved, he worked during the summers at a peach orchard up there, and it was a big outfit that shipped peaches on ice up to New York. But he was just kind of a hired hand. Um, and then the cool thing about, and his grandfather, I've got an article written from the Banks County newspaper way back when, but his grandfather had a small orchard up on Kelly Mountain, which was not too far from Currahee Mountain. Um, so he kind of had some background in it, but he actually worked his occupation was, he worked at a plant in Athens, kind of the majority of his working career. um, Westinghouse up off Chase Street, kind of back in that area of Athens. He worked there for 20 something years. And but toward the end of that, he actually planted the orchard. So he would go to work in Athens during the day. He would come home in the evenings, and he would work in the orchard. He would pick the peaches, and my grandmother would sell them in the stand during the day. So I mean, you talk about just long work days and kind of that hard work and grind. I mean, he did it there for a while before he retired, doing basically two jobs. So
You
That's awesome.
mentioned the Great Depression. Not to compare COVID to the Great Depression, but talk a little bit about some of the obstacles you guys faced as an organization during COVID and how you overcame that time. I mean, what was that like for you as a small business owner?
yeah, that was so 2020. I mean, I started the business in 2009, so we're essentially 11 years, into business at that point. So we're not an upstart at that point, but we had kind of the evolution of our business. We had a lot of kind of peaks and valleys and a lot of learning experiences along the way. I don't have a background in clothing, so we're kind of learning on the go, and we'd had a lot of good success. But and in honesty, 2019 was a weird year for us, where we had a difficult year. And our sales were great, and we had had a good year in some ways, but we were we were having some issues, and we really didn't have a profitable year in 2019. And so we had this huge game plan of how we were going to approach 2020. And we knew we were going to close one store, and we had to kind of restructure some things within the company. And we were kind of excited about some of the moves we were making. And then all of a sudden, March of 2020 rolls around, and everything shuts down. And it was a really scary time, because we're coming off that bad year where we're kind of worried about some things anyway. And then you have, in our industry, we had 5 stores at the time. You have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory, in that February, March time. And we're trying to reach out to companies and say, hey, is it possible? Can we cancel these orders? And that's putting them in a tough spot, because if we cancel, they're in trouble. And so for the most part, we accepted all that inventory. On the Peach State Pride side of things, we had inventory coming in from overseas, from our manufacturers, hitting the warehouse floor, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of inventory, and the economy shuts down, and you're just so worried. You didn't know at that point early on in COVID, what the government was going to do. They were going to help us out in some ways, but those first couple months were just terrifying. And Carrie Beth and I we would come home, and we didn't know what to do. We stopped watching the news because it was just so depressing. And so it was a really scary time. But everything all kind of worked its way out. We learned a ton of lessons from it. We restructured a lot of things within our business, and we kind of came out stronger. So kind of thankful for what happened with COVID, but there for about 2 months, it was definitely the most terrifying time of our, you know, careers, I guess, within this business. So.
No doubt. And for those of y'all that do not know, Peach State Pride is an excellent brand. He's got a bunch of retail shops, clothing items. Derek, if you don't mind talking a little bit about building that brand, and then what was it like when you started opening these shops, and then your product, which is now in over 100 stores throughout the southeast. What's it like building that brand, and then the negotiation and the deals, having other people's product in your stores as well?
Okay. Yeah. So, Peach State Pride, like I mentioned earlier, I started it in 2009, and I really didn't have clothing on my mind when I started it. I was building playgrounds for a company at the time. I was going to go to grad school, and it was kind of an in between job, and kept working in South Carolina, kept seeing the palm tree crescent moon. And I just thought it was so cool that in South Carolina, it didn't matter what part of the state you were from. You could be miles and miles and miles away from any palm trees or palmettos or whatever was on that logo. And they proudly displayed that logo. You'd see it everywhere. And I just thought it kind of brought people together in South Carolina. And I thought, it'd be so cool if Georgia had something like this. And I've always kind of been a creative visionary, and went home and drew the logo. And actually, one of the first people I showed was Mobley, BB's wife. I called her and a friend, Mallory Stuckey at the time. She's married now. And I asked them, if they wanted to see this logo, and kind of just talk to them about it. And I brought it to them, just the sketch I had, and just kind of get a little affirmation. And they're always encouraging. But, kind of didn't have clothing on my mind at the time. My roommates just kind of threw that out there. You should make some t-shirts and hats. Did it. And it, did that kind of like minimum run you can do with a screen printer, to where you feel like you're getting a decent price. And, I was going to do a few different colors, and they told me the price of, one color compared to 3 colors. And I was like, well, let's do 1 color. And, just kind of winging it completely, man. I didn't know anything about this Southern clothing lines that were going on at the time. There was only a few, but like Southern Proper existed, Southern Tide, Southern Point. They were 2009 too. So Southern Marsh, that was the other one. So, those brands have been around for a couple years, but I didn't really know a lot about them. And so I was just kind of winging it. But I sold through everything I made. And then a friend of mine that BB knows, Clark Williams, and you might know him too, Daniel. But
I know Clark, yeah.
Okay, so he was managing the Ace Hardware. His dad owned the Ace Hardware in Royston, and just said he would carry some of my stuff there. So started selling to him, got on the wholesale game, and And I'm telling you, I literally knew nothing. I mean, I was a history major at Georgia College, did not know anything about business. And so I'm just completely going in blind, doing things. And, um, but sold to another store and sold it to another store. And then they started communicating, um, and people started asking for it. And we had a few country music artists that, that started wearing it and liked the idea. Um, and it kind of became a clothing line. And really, honestly, at the beginning, it wasn't even that good, but it was such a new idea. There weren't many people in the market. It's kind of in there early, and kind of had an opportunity to learn on the fly because wasn't a ton of competition out there. And so yeah, it was those first few years were a journey. And I started dating Carrie Beth, my wife, who's my business partner and the brains behind the operation, I always say. And we started dating in late 2010, and our strengths are just completely opposite. I'm kind of a creative visionary people person, and she's more of a structure and systems and analytical mind. And so we kind of are a good team in that sense. But so that was the Peach State Pride kind of origin, the brand. And then we decided in 2013 we were getting married, and we were trying to figure out exactly where we wanted to live. And we decided that we thought it'd be cool to have a clothing store where we sold some women's items and Peach State Pride. So we kind of came up with a concept. We called it the Peach State Pride store, and we chose Watkinsville. Downtown Watkinsville is where we chose to do it at. I kind of had a little familiarity with the area, but really we felt like it was prime for retail at that time. Traditionally, people in Oconee County, Watkinsville had kind of, they did their shopping in their restaurants in Athens, but we, at that point, the per capita income was high, and we kind of knew that, if something could get established there, it could be a good area, a growing area to kind of set up shop. So we opened that store in 2013, and a year later, we decided we wanted to bring in some other brands besides Peach State Pride on the men's side, and we changed the name to Empire South, and started reaching out to other brands. And you mentioned just kind of how's that relationship work? You get a contact or you reach out through a website. One of the first brands we went after was Patagonia. We went after Southern Marsh, and you got to kind of go through some processes to get approved with those brands. But we got pretty much every brand that we wanted, and we wanted brands that would sit next to Peach State Pride that would be complementary, that the customer of that wants that type of brand is the type of customer that we want to see the Peach State Pride brand as well. So there was always kind of that element to it with Empire South was, how do we want to frame Peach State Pride, and what kind of target market do we want? And so yeah, that's kind of how that.
Warehouse sales are unrivaled, and you've been a good friend, and you always give me the drop on that. I don't always take you up on it, but the times you have, I've walked away with the night. You mentioned Patagonia. I mean, you get these down jackets that are like $200 a pop. One of the best deals. Don't miss that opportunity. I'll just tell our listeners, it's worth a drive if anywhere in the state. If you can catch early in the week, it's going to be picked then towards the end of the week. But thanks for always giving me the drop on that. You mentioned the country music. Your collaboration there. I thought that was a good segue because the Peach Pickers. I love following good songwriters, and those guys have kind of become synonymous with Peach State Pride, Dallas Davison, Ben Haslett, Red Akins. Those guys are always wearing your gear. And also talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about y'all's night of country music in Nashville. Talk a little bit about Four Wheel Drive, which I've got to say, I had a high school band called Four Wheel Drive, and I'd like to think that our intellectual property rights, would absorb their. When I saw that, I saw y'all were collaborating with them, and I was like, man, we had to have a name to submit it to Battle of the Bands. That's how it started. We were like the band with no name. Like we were the band, and we couldn't take the band because that was taken, but it was one of those things. But talk a little bit about that, your collaboration with Nashville Country Music, how that meshes with y'all's brand. That's been easy to notice. And you go to a Luke Bryan concert, especially coming up in the days we'll talk a little bit about those concerts we went to. Eric Church, Luke Bryan, Aldine, all those guys. You would see the trucker hats, Peach State Pride trucker hats was really your first big product. But talk a little bit about that momentum and how that that fire caught, and it allowed you guys to specialize in some other areas. But it's really that trucker hat that really talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the trucker hat kind of built the brand, and in turn built Empire South and what we've been able to do today. But Red Akins, he got his hand on it somehow. I can't remember the exact story, but I think it has something to do with this farm tour and the DJ who was from Milledgeville, Rocky. I gave him some hats and was trying to get him to Luke Bryan. I think they found their way to Rhett, and man, he's been awesome. I mean, and those guys you mentioned, the peach pickers, they all three have worn our hats so much over the years, and it's been great advertising. But and I mean, creative guys. I mean, they're at the end of the day, they're good old boys from Georgia that have a way with words and have put together some incredible songs and told some awesome stories through song. That so many people in country music or that love country music have heard. You might not know sometimes that they're the ones that wrote it, but these three guys from Georgia are the ones that did it, and they've been awesome. And I mean, there's been so many over the years. You mentioned the 4-wheel drive guys. I can remember when I don't remember what year, it might have been 2014, 15, something like that, but I kept getting these trucker hat orders from this guy from Loganville, John Langston. I mean, he would buy them online. I didn't really know who he was. And then at some point, I saw his name on Instagram or something as this country music guy that was kind of coming up, and I was like, oh, that guy, he's a Peach State Pride customer. I've shipped him hats so many times, and of course, after that, he didn't ever have to buy a hat online again. But he was always such a supporter, and Cole Taylor and Travis Denning and Jordan Rager, the 4-wheel drive guys. They were always just you know so supportive of Peach State Pride. They're all from Georgia, different parts of Georgia, and
Yeah, Hayslip's from Columbia County. He went to Evans. Stud baseball player, and I think all his boys play baseball and are really good. One of them plays at Bama right now.
Yeah,
really good athletes. But it's been cool to see those stories. We convinced Cole to come play a birthday party this past September for myself and my buddy Michael Tucker. Derek, I know you made it. Danny wasn't invited, so I think they had something. Jamal Anderson, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, I forgot to mention. Speaking of
birds.
Some Georgia, and I don't know if he's Spencer Strider or Super Troopers. I'm still trying to figure out that. I meant to bust on him when we started. But anyways,
I've been telling Elizabeth that we go to a bunch of Braves games. We're going to be going to one here in about a month. One of my buddies is from the Baltimore area, so the Orioles are coming to Atlanta to play on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. And I've been telling Elizabeth I'm going to buy a Spencer Strider jersey and buy some legit baseball pants and just go into the stadium dressed exactly as Spencer Strider and just see how many people mess with me over that. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So
Nice.
Appreciate you telling that story, about the Nashville collaboration. So shout out to, Cole and Travis Denning is another one that comes to mind. We met his folks at the Ashley McBride concert. Remember that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, it's been
That's
cool to see
one.
that. Yeah.
I was going to say that's one of the best country songs that I've ever heard, and you introduced me to it. Was that Bible in a 44 by Ashley McBride? If you've never heard that song, go look it up. It is incredible.
Top 5 for me. And we talked about just loving the songwriter and the angle of just hearing stories. I'm constantly looking up when I hear a good song, looking up who wrote it. You start to see some of the same names. Cole's the guy that has had a lot of success. A lot of hits with different artists. Vulture's another guy from Augusta area. So, Georgia's churning out a lot of talented songwriters and performers. It's so interesting to see the dynamic now with Georgia. It seems like Tennessee is the other team right now because Morgan Wallen, I guess, is
he's huge, right?
He's huge, and he's a Tennessee guy. So it seems like that rivalry. But we've got so many guys that are big, supporters of not only the Dogs but just the state of Georgia. Yeah. And talk a little bit about that night in Nashville. You guys have always been a part of. You can tell more about it. You know more about it than I do. So go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, I think just kind of to the point you're making. I mean, there's just so many Georgians in Nashville, and really this era right now too. There's tons of them, but even prior to that, you had some Georgia artists like Alan Jackson and Travis Tritt and some of those
Yeah.
guys coming up back in the day, and but now it's just kind of blown up, and the Peach Pickers, which they're so connected in Nashville because they've written so many great songs for so many artists, but they kind of came up with this idea of a night of Georgia music, and they did it at the Ryman there in Nashville. And it kind of gave these country music artists that live in Nashville an opportunity to just kind of come over and play a song. They didn't have to make any kind of major commitment to anything, but they would, have all these kind of, I mean, it's been a couple years since they've done it because of COVID, but they had, you know, Luke Bryan come out and do a song, Cole Swindell, the four wheel drive guys, some of those guys would play, and of course Red Akins and Dallas Davison and Ben Hayslip would play some songs as well. But they got I think Driving and Crying came out and played a song one time. It wasn't all just country. They had what's the guy from Macon sitting on the dock, Otis Redding's son, come out and
Oh yeah.
play. And they support a foundation that kind of helps youth kids and kind of find that love of music and kind of build that up within them and support that. So there's a cause there, but we never paid the Peach Pickers anything to wear our stuff. So when they reached out to us for a sponsorship, it was the least we could do to help out those nights, and it made for a fun weekend up in Nashville. But man, it's just a night of. I mean, the governor would usually come and say something and be there. So I mean, it's just a night to be proud to be from Georgia, but also do some good and hear some good music as well. So if they start doing that again, they might have actually done it last year, kind of in a different way. But if you ever hear about that night of Georgia music,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth a trip up to the Ryman in Nashville to go check it out. So
Well, you brought up sponsorship. Those guys. We're still waiting on our first sponsorship, so we'd love to talk after this. Maybe we can finalize the deal. And
I got you. Absolutely.
man, I just enjoyed hearing about this. I mean, yeah, I mean, country music. While we're talking about that, I mean, just so many talented guys. I'm thinking about when we were coming up at Georgia College. I mean, it was Capital City at the time. I remember seeing Luke when he was. Yeah, I might be saying it wrong. Naomi Road. Naomi Road.
Naomi. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I knew I was going to botch that, but I remember coming over there to see those guys. You just knew he was a star. Everybody had that mixtape. Like this is back when you burned CDs, you buy it at the merch
Oh yeah.
counter at the back. But everybody would wear that out, and then he came out with his first album, and there was a few of the songs that didn't make it on there, and it was like an uproar. And we rode in trucks. They completely just it's just overproduced. It didn't feel the same as the good old album. So, anyways, he's had a great career. Obviously he's on American Idol, but I go back to those memories of seeing him at the theater. Do you remember those days?
Oh, he put on a great show, and I mean, Luke Bryan, and I'm not a hater in any way, but the Luke Bryan that today compared to what he was in those little honky tonk type small venues where he had his little circuit around Valdosta and Statesboro and Americus, and then up to Milledgeville and Athens at Georgia Theater. I mean, the shows that he would put on and the old 90s country that he would cover and old Alabama songs and George Strait songs. I mean, he was incredibly talented at covering these songs. And then, of course, he was mixing in each show. He would kind of introduce more and more of his stuff, which was quality and good directions that Billy Currington cut. I mean, that was a Luke Bryan song that we love.
That was his break. Yeah, he'll tell you. I mean, that was his big break, is getting that obviously gets you more credibility as an artist when you get some chops in the songwriting game. And that was a really huge break for him. He always references that when he's talking about his big break. He came out and opened with I think it was Brand New Man, Brooks and Dunn. I was like, this guy's a star.
That's right.
Just that you could feel the energy in that club like that. Sometimes country music translates better in a venue like that than it does a big arena. There's certain guys like a Luke Combs has a big, or Garth Brooks that can do an arena. But even Eric Church, granted I haven't seen him in a huge venue. He's got enough of a rock background. But when you've seen him at Capital City, when you've seen him at Georgia Theater, when you've seen him at 40 Watt, it's like you kind of get spoiled a little bit. because you've seen him in an intimate venue like that. And I just don't have the same interest of seeing him at a Mercedes Benz.
No,
I'm not the only one that just feels like country music translates so much. We mentioned Ashley McBride that brought the house down that night, but I don't think it would hit the same if we were at a huge amphitheater. You just wouldn't have the same feel. So country music is built more for a bar stool, and sometimes translates better as an acoustic show.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a sweet spot when they're big enough to where the energy is really good, but they're not like so big that they're selling out the venue you're at, but they're not so big that they're playing a large venue and you can kind of be intimate and be there at the crowd and feel that energy. Luke Combs, we saw him in Athens a few years ago, like right as he was about to get big, and I mean, you could just feel it and just see just how incredible he was right there. But yeah, there's definitely a sweet spot before they get too big.
Yeah. Shout out Guitar Pool and Augusta.
Yeah.
Seen a lot of great shows there, and I agree with you, BB. I'll go ahead and say it. I've been to a lot of shows at the Benz, and the Benz is, I mean, it is what it is. It's an incredible arena, stadium, but like acoustic wise, and like when you go see a show like that, like there's something different about being at theater, Georgia Theater or Capital City. Like it's more personal. You're like right on top of it. It's conversational. Like, I just think that it works better in a venue like that for sure.
Right. Yeah. Is there a question for you guys? Is there an artist that you still to this day like? That's what I don't mind where they play at. It could be the biggest stadium around. That's the guy I want to go see. Who's your stadium guy?
George Strait.
Man, right now, honestly, you talked about seeing guys on the come up. I feel like a guy that I had a chance to see and I just could never figure it out was Cody Johnson. And Cody Johnson, I knew when he came back through Athens, I was like, man, he's big enough where he's not going to be playing this size venue for very long, and he's blown up. And he's the guy that I've been following for years. But he did the Texas country thing, and he got a huge following, very similar to Luke Bryan. I mean, it's a very low risk sign if you're a label and backing a guy that already has a regional following. I mean, Luke blew up, but he already had infrastructure built to where they knew exactly what they were getting with him. It's a very low risk sign for an agency or for a label. And same thing with Cody. I mean, he had that big regional following in Texas and then took it to Nashville. But you can tell the production quality of his last couple records have been very different from what he put out in the Texas country circuit. No disrespect to that, but the Nashville, they've still let him have ownership over his sound, but they've also really, leveled out the sound. And really, I feel like a guy like that, and on that early was Derek Church, that even from his old records, he still had a lot of input. And I think his producer was Jay Joyce, but those guys really found their sound early. Coming from Augusta, Lady A was a group that we tracked early on, and they kind of were lightning in a bottle because they really found their groove and found their identity as an artist early. And you can hear that in their first record. Yeah. So that's super important for these young artists. And sometimes, Luke, his first album was not my favorite, but he's had some releases since that have been great. But here's one. I got off topic there on the tangent, but Derek, who was a guy that you mentioned that you'd see no matter what?
No, that's good points. But George Strait, I mean, he's definitely that's the one I think about where you sing along to all the songs and everybody in the stadium knows them. And and I almost feel kind of cheesy for saying this. I don't know if y'all feel the same way about, dude. I still like some of Kenny Chesney's songs. Like some of his stuff, just I can't stand. But if you put me in a stadium and he played like his top songs, man, he's got some great songs, and so I can definitely enjoy that concert. So
now that's a guy that translates to a big venue. I mean, we talked about I've seen Guard a few times, and Kenny's a guy that he translates to a big crowd, a big audience, and he's got the sound, he's got the production quality. Just some of those guys don't,
No doubt. Kenny, man, I actually got the chance to go see him. It was 6 or so months ago. Elizabeth and I went and saw him at the Benz, and it's kind of like very split. Like either people like him or they don't like him. So shout out my buddy Charlie Houston. He's a Kenny Chesney fan like myself, and I'll tell you, man, Like being at a big venue, even though I'm not a big fan, that dude blew the roof off the bins. Like
Yeah.
it was just an
Oh,
absolute party. It was so much fun.
It's like he's had two careers too. If you go
Yeah.
back and listen, he had a greatest hits album before, the good stuff, and some of those hits that were,
it's
he's had two careers.
Yeah.
The Tin Man, there's a duet with Baptism with Randy Travis. That's back in the day. Back Where I Come From was one that I love and always go back to. There's so many hits.
The Boys Fall.
Yeah, that would have been probably the
great.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been the second career, if you will. There's
Even, even he had some of those collaborations that were kind of like Dave Matthews. He did that one song with Dave Matthews, did the You and Tequila with I think Grace Potter. Those are some good songs, but yeah.
Man, I love the direction that this discussion is taking. We could talk about this all day, but it's similar to artists finding their groove early in Nashville. Same thing with you. I see the way your brand identity when you started Peace State Pride was true to you. I remember going around with you. I don't know if it was consignment, the Red Zone downtown. I mean, I went around with you, man. I was there for the jump. So I was like, marketing guy. To your credit, like you're a branding guy, but I would just walk up and start talking like, "Hey, you got to get your shit." I was like, kind of really aggressive, and you're like, "Man, can you come with me on all these trips?" It's like, and I feel like I see that because your relationship with Carrie Beth. You mentioned how y'all are business partners. I've seen that come to fruition in y'all's brand because we'll have to have her on another day, but you're the branding guy, and you kind of had your identity woven into the brand, and she really had a lot of that fashion business acumen. She went to Tech, as we know she's smart, and talk a little bit about that marriage and how you guys balancing each other out, even from the beginning. How when you guys got married, so to speak, that's really when the business took off.
Yeah, we did a personality test. I mean, we'd already been married for a few years. We did it like 6 years ago, but I mean, we were exactly opposite, and it was so funny to see that. And it was funny too. Speaking about tech, there was like a bunch of people from all over the state that did these personality tests at the same time, and all the tech people were like the same. They were like the same personality type, which was so funny to me. But anyway, we're just completely different. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, I've always got that founder's mentality. What is Peach State Pride all about? Why did I start this? And we never want to get away from that too much. But at the end of the day, a business has to be run, and there's just a lot of just like consistent systems that have to go in place for you to have a successful business. And that's where people like Here Beth come in. Sometimes to me it's kind of boring stuff, but at the end of the day, like that's where a successful business is. I guess you can't have a successful business long term just on creativity and vision. So but it's a great working relationship. We have an incredible amount of respect for each other because we know each other's strengths. And it's not that we don't argue about things or disagree about things. I mean, but we can always we have such a mutual respect for each other that we kind of get through those conversations. And I don't know, it's just been awesome. I hear so many people over the years say I can never do that with my wife or spouse, but it's work, and it's fun. We do it and we love it. And she works from home most days. We live down here in Greensboro, and she doesn't want to miss out on everything with our children. And so she wants to spend half days, at home with our kids. So we send them to preschool for half day, and she'll try to take care of them in the afternoon. It's an incredible balance. I don't see how she does it sometimes, but that's important to her. So she's raising children. She's running, Empire South pretty much. She's kind of the main behind the scenes person with Empire South. And then, I do most of the stuff with Peach State Pride, and she kind of chips in with the inventory management and buying and those kind of things. And but yes, but we're still rolling with it. We've been doing it we started dating in late 2010, so we've been doing this together in some ways I don't know, 14 years, almost 13 years, whatever it is.
And while we're talking about Carrie Beth, I mean, I think it's a good segue. We got to go to a dinner with you guys recently. She's on the board with Bethel Haven. Talk a little bit about the organizations you guys partner with and what's behind that. You know, the collaborations that you guys seek out in the community. What drives that from overflowing out of your personal life into the business? How do you guys manage that aspect of things?
Yeah, I wish Carrie Beth could have jumped on today. She's not feeling real well, but she's really involved on the Bethel Haven board, um, which provides mental health counseling for people that oftentimes can't afford it, or you know maybe can pay for part of it. But she's really involved in that, and she really feels like that's a good way that she can give back. I think everybody's kind of gifted in different ways and has ways that they can you know impact the world in a positive way. And she's been really involved with that board and really kind of helped that business be a successful business. And it's incredible sometimes how much time she has put into that particular board, but also extra special people. um, she's on one of the boards there, and I used to kind of help out with that one, but at some point we kind of decided that I'm on the Georgia College Foundation board, and I kind of do a little bit more with that, and she kind of handles ESP and Bethel Haven. But great organizations, and it's an opportunity for business leaders to kind of, through their experiences, our experiences, go in and kind of help these nonprofits do what they need to do out in the community. So it's important. It's a very important part of who we are. So.
Have you been to the ESP playground lately?
Oh yeah, it's incredible. Yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, it's kind of a kept secret. Maybe I'm just letting the cat out of the bag right now, but we love going over there. There's a lot of options out here in Oconee, but that's been cool to get that
yeah.
space.
You just kind of let your kids go out there. Just close the gate and just it's a good place. So.
And the night they do at the Classic Center is pretty cool. I know you guys have gone to that each year.
Yeah, Big Hearts, awesome. If anybody ever has an opportunity to go to Big Hearts and see those kids perform, and it's a great organization.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned y'all moved from Watkinsville to Greensboro. Folks that don't know you, talk a little bit about your handymanship and your love for fixer upper and giving properties a facelift. Because you bought a historic property in Greensboro, correct?
Yeah, we did. So we made the move, man. And a lot of people question, why moved away from some good people for sure. But I've always had an interest in old homes, and if you looked at my Instagram account, it's like there's so much historic architecture and things like that. It's just a huge interest of mine, and I never knew that for sure that Carrie Beth would be interested in that. So we found this home. We were driving down to Amelia Island. We drove through Greensboro. We saw a home for sale on Zillow, and I don't know, or we saw a home for sale. We looked it up on Zillow. I don't know if you guys do that. If you ever just kind of let me just check that out and see, even if you're not even that interested in moving there, anything. But and we it wasn't even that house, but we found this house that we live in now, and it was, we were living in downtown Watkinsville, which we loved, and incredible town under incredible leadership, and it's just going to it's going to continue to do great things. But we were about to outgrow our home. There was going to be some issues adding on to it. There wasn't any other inventory of old homes available downtown Watkinsville really at the time, and so we kind of cashed in. We always say we cashed in on Watkinsville at the right time and moved to Greensboro, downtown Greensboro, at a time when you're kind of able to get a good deal on a home, and it's kind of gone up in value since. But I mean, it's a really unique place. We have 5 acres. The home was built in 1880, and just kind of dove in. And these projects, man, it's just been never ending, but it's just something I really enjoy, and it's part of my creativity and vision. It kind of feels that kind of fix in some ways, where I can kind of dive in and feel like we're doing something for the community to help save an old house. And we actually just bought the house next to us here in town that we're flipping, and we're going to try to find some good new neighbors. So if anybody's interested living in downtown Greensboro, reach out, because we got a new home coming available here soon. So but I love it. But it's funny when it's like when it's I feel like I'm a handy person, but if it's, you need to fix this, I don't enjoy it. I have the hardest time like on a honey to-do list of like, let me fix something that's broken as opposed to like, let me come up with an idea and actually create it. So I don't know. I pick and choose on how I like to be handy, but we got a lot of stuff here to be handy about. It's just there's still a lot to do. So
Yeah, you and Ben both share that vision. Ben gets it
yeah,
from his dad,
I
Don.
mean, I get it from my dad, but honestly, I'm just trying to keep up when I'm helping him out. I mean, we worked in this place together, and I was treading water trying to keep up with him. But what I've learned from him is you kind of just got to get into it and figure out the next step.
right,
I paralyze myself sometimes in getting started, on something because I'm not fully sure. I'm not completely sure how get the whole finished product done, but we were doing things step by step, and a lot of times you just got to get in there and figure out what the next step is.
that's right.
Now with
Yeah,
YouTube, I mean, it's a DIY dream really to have YouTube. You can pull up just about anything you want to get into from a hobby standpoint. But yes, it's you got to be willing to try new things. I think that's the key, and I really do miss doing projects. I mean, we had some guys here recently working in our yard, shredding pine straw, and I was like, man, what I wouldn't give to get out there and shred some pine straw. I just miss yard work, miss breaking a sweat. That's probably one of those things I miss the most right now. About
well, you did a great job in your house, and I can tell you have the right mentality. I feel like you're going to do everything right to a T, and that's part of it too. Is just having that right mentality as well as you can look up stuff on YouTube and get it done. But having a high standard and doing it right,
sure.
it's part of it too. So
Well, while we're talking about Greensboro, you moved from Watkinsville to Greensboro. Let's go ahead and do the game. Well, this is just it's very original. We're going to call it Pick 'em. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go around the horn and we're going to name a city or a town in Georgia. Can't be your hometown. It can't be your current hometown, and it can't be where you grew up. But a place you admire, a place you could picture yourself living. I'm picturing a very equal shotgun spread of Georgia here as far as what we're going to go through. But I'll let Daniel, I'll let you go first, and then we'll go Derek, and then I'll go myself.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. I went back and forth on this list a lot. Obviously, I live in Athens. If I could choose anything, it would be Athens because I love this place. But I grew up with a real strong love for the coast and going out with my dad, who's batshit crazy, on a 17-foot Boston Whaler Montauk out 20 miles into the ocean. So I'll kick it off with St. Simon's Island. I just think that coastal living is really hard to beat. I like the idea that you wake up on a Saturday morning and you can just hop in a boat and spend your day fishing. So that would be my number one on my list is St. Simon's. B, is it going to you or we're going to kick it to Derek?
Derek, you got it.
all right, I'm gonna start off with my number 5. So this is definitely my number 5 on the list because I don't think I necessarily want to live there. But BB mentioned something about a place that you admire, and I could see myself living there one day. But Washington, Georgia. I don't know if you guys have ever been through Washington. It's one of those like gems of a place that like you drive through. The antebellum homes are incredible. It's just small and quaint, and it's kind of off the beaten path, And even Wilkes County in general, there's a lot of beautiful rolling farmland through there. I like it. I got a good friend that lives there, but I don't think I'm ready to pick up and move to Washington. I just admire that town. I think people should go visit it if you ever get a chance, and it's a really cool place.
That's what we had you on here to pick. Washington, Georgia. That's good pick.
I agree with that. I actually have a friend that just started he's with State Farm, but he opened up an office in Washington. And so he's really he's dove into Wilkes County. He goes to the Washington Wilkes football games, and he and his wife love it. I mean, they still live in Columbia County, but he's spending majority of his days in Washington. And to your point, yeah, I mean, anytime me and BB go home, we drive right through Washington. So
you got Augusta folks know it. Augusta people know Washington. So
yeah, Washington, Lincoln. That's a pretty area right there through there.
Yeah.
I'll go Thomasville, Georgia for me. I mean, I spent some time as a kid. My childhood was in Thomasville. When I was about 9, we moved to Augusta, but got great memories down there in Thomasville. It's just such a quintessential South Georgia town, and it feels a little isolated, I guess, down there. You're closer to 38 You can fly in and out of Tallahassee if you need to. You're closer to the Georgia coast, the Golden Isles. But Thomasville, man, something sticks out about that. Not just because I'm from there, but when you're driving through there, all the cool downtown areas, the cool shops, restaurants. It's got a lot to offer for a small town. And Mobley's grandma, your grandma, Mommy Dot, who's got 9 lives.
Yeah,
we could have a podcast about Mommy.
Yeah.
She's we're praying for Mommy Dot right
She was 189 years old.
She's a sweetheart. But every Thanksgiving we'd have the chance to go down there. And because Mobley's mom grew up in Oak Clyde and he went to Thomas County Central. And so I got a kick out of going down there to retrace my childhood steps. But man, my childhood was great because we grew up right next to Thomas College, if you're familiar to that area. But we could walk to school, little walk to Jurger, a little public school right there. And the golf course on one side, Glen Arvin was on one side of the neighborhood, and we would just roam. I mean, I'm looking back, we would have been K through 2, and we would be miles away from the house. And I'm looking at Abby; she's in kindergarten. Like the things we got into, it was a different day. But I just, I'm fortunate to be able to grow up in a place like that we could roam and come in at dark, and just our parents weren't worried about us. And maybe it feels like more of a leash now because it felt like our parents didn't have any clue, or they probably did. It's just the nature of parenting, and I was feeling like we had a long leash. But Thomasville's for me very special.
Great,
and,
great.
So good.
My second pick would be where I met my wife. She was living in Woodstock, Georgia. I knew nothing about Woodstock, never been there. And then obviously as we were dating, I was spending a lot of time there, driving there every weekend. And the downtown scene is just awesome. I mean, they've got Reformation Brewery that also has great barbecue. So if you're ever in the area, go get a beer and barbecue there. I like it. I mean, you're 30 minutes from Kennesaw Mountain. You can be in Atlanta in 40 minutes. You can be in Athens in an hour and 15. It's just that North Georgia area is so special to me. North Georgia to me is the best. And so Woodstock it's up and coming. It reminds me a lot like the vibes in the shops and the restaurants. Like you kind of get in Watkinsville right now. It's one of those towns you're hitting it in the sweet spot of it really blossoming into something special.
Yeah. Cool. So my next one is Habersham County. I always call Habersham the motherland because that's where the Chitwoods originated from. And it's just it's North Georgia. It's not mountains really yet. I mean, it kind of is, but it's more rolling hills with some beautiful scenes of the mountains. We got some good friends that have some property up above Clarksville, and it is just shout out to the Llewellyns. They have a little beef cattle farm up there, but man, just incredible, beautiful rolling hills and good people, man. We did the Chitwood reunion up in Cornelia every year growing up, and just, kind of feel like I know people just through that, going up there once a year. But, sometimes it's about the people too. So I definitely feel good about the folks up in Habersham. So
I like that pick. I've got some buddies from up there as well. Underwoods, Rogers, and it is a special place. You can catch a trout. You can. There's a lot to do around there if you're outdoors savvy. And I'll stick with that North Georgia theme. How about Gainesville? I mean, for a lot of the reasons you named about Woodstock, I feel like they're on the right side of Lanier as far as Lanier. It's not as busy. That finger that sticks up towards Flower Branch and Gainesville, and so I like what's happening downtown there. I like the terrain. I like North Georgia, and I think the reason I love North Georgia is just the very distinct seasons that you experience. And Derek, growing up in Franklin County, and Augusta. I mean, no disrespect to Augusta. I love Augusta too. That would likely make the list if it didn't apply under our prerequisites. But there's a lot of pine trees over in Augusta. It's all pines, and when you get in more in this Piedmont region, you experience a lot of the color in the fall. It's very distinct seasons. So I think experiencing that North Georgia, that taste, and also just the convenience of it. If you've got to get to Atlanta, which we don't none of us spend a ton of time in Atlanta, but it's easy to zip over there when you need to. But Gainesville, for me, for a lot of the reasons you named about Woodstock, to me, is convenience and also just North Georgia. So.
Also, Augusta is a different kind of hot. Like that place gets hot, hot.
But it's above the Nat line. It's got to be. Well, some people might chime in from Augusta, say it's not, but I think it is. It's right on the Gator and Cottonmouth line. I do know that because you know that from duck hunting.
Shout out Brickyard.
Yeah. Okay, lost my train of thought. All right, where we at? Gainesville. So that was my pick. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it back down south once again. I got a couple of buddies that live down in this area, St. Mary's, Georgia. It's on the coast. That place is great. One of my buddies, he runs a fishing charter, and so maybe that's a lot of the reason I like it is because he takes me fishing when I go see him. But it's in a great spot. It's right there by Cumberland Island. Derek, have you ever been to Cumberland?
I have, yeah, went one time. Awesome.
It's unbelievable. It's just beautiful. You go out there, you can literally go by boat, park on the beach, see all the wild horses, see the Cumberland Castle, and then I mean, from where the dock is that we take out from, it's like 15 minutes, and you're in downtown Fernandina Beach, Florida.
That's right.
So epic fishing down there, just really good spot. And then also the downtown area of St. Mary's, they've done a lot. Like it is charming. It's like being in Savannah, but without the size of Savannah or Charleston. Like it's just a beautiful, low country, southern coastal town. Great food, great bar scene. So I would put St. Mary's on my list.
Cool. Yeah, beautiful. Love that. And I like that you mentioned Cumberland too, man. Cumberland's awesome.
Yeah.
My wife wishes Fernandina and Amelia Island were in Georgia. Or she wishes we could live there, and it would be great if it was a part of the state of Georgia. We'll definitely use that on this list. But that's our favorite place to go to. But so next for me would be, and I know this is a very polarizing place, but I love Macon, Georgia. I know that there's definitely a side of Macon that you wouldn't want to raise your family in, but there's just some cool kind of culture and vibes with the whole music history there. A lot of old cool architecture, and then some cool little pockets to live. But I've always liked Macon, and you're not too far away from some good agriculture and some farmland, and get out there to Dickey's peach orchard and all that. So yeah, I always liked Macon a lot. So
that's a sneaky pick. You've got a lot of growth down south of Macon too. I mean, that Warner Robins area and Perry, I mean, from Valdosta up and connecting to Macon, it's just blown up. Georgia as a whole is growing, but that area in particular sticks out as a new area. I ran this list by Molly, and she threw one out there that I wasn't thinking about that makes my list. How about Clayton, Georgia? Which she said Lake Raven, and I was like, I don't know if we can afford to live on Lake Raven, but my dad's got a good story about some real estate opportunities he had growing up that Oconee and Raven, that when land was nothing. It was like, but money makes money. We all know you've got to have a lot of it to be able to spend. You got to have that capital to be able to invest and to be able to. And so all that to say is, you can easily look back and say, I should have, would have, could have. But nobody's just got that extra capital lying around to just buy up a bunch of coastline of Lake Oconee and Lake Raven. But at the time, let's say 30, well, even more than that, probably 30 years ago, dirt was very available around those areas. But I do think that's beautiful country up there. And I guess Clayton's just become that, whether it's antique, market feel. The downtown's got a lot of cool places to eat, shop, do the whole downtown thing. So that sticks out.
Yeah, and they play some good high school football up there now too, which never thought I would say that, but
Charlie Warner and that crew. All right, where are we? Daniel?
Yeah, I had a list, but as we're getting to talk, I'm gonna knock at least one of the towns off my list. So no offense to that town, we'll leave that town unmentioned. But the more we're talking, Monroe. Monroe is a really cool spot. That downtown, it's historic. I've back in my banking days, I had some connections in Monroe and did some business up there. It's a lot of just really good people. Again, it kind of has the same vibes that you would get in probably Greensboro. Just good old, relatively North Georgia, southern town. I think Monroe's a hidden gem.
It's not hidden anymore. That's the thing.
Yeah,
That almost made my list, but I'll tell you the other town that did, but they're similar. But anywhere that's got an interstate running close by, whether it's Jefferson 85 or Monroe and Madison, I-20 coming right through there, in the vicinity of Atlanta, people are getting out of the city a lot and going into the city for two days a week or 3 days a week if they have to. But same reason why you're situated very good for growth in Greensboro. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people too. Monroe is just it's a hub of Athens in a lot of ways. I mean, if you're a big UGA person and you love downtown Athens, you kind of want to be a little connected to it. Places like Monroe, Madison, Oconee, Jefferson, they're all kind of, even Greensboro. It's like, depending on where you're moving from, you feel like you're kind of in the Athens area at that point. So that's another little perk about it. So yeah. So next for me, this is kind of cheating a little bit, but and I didn't want to say too much when you were talking about Thomasville, but just Southwest Georgia in general is probably my favorite part of the state. And there's just a little different way of life in Southwest Georgia. There's a lot of agriculture, but there's also, it's just, there's a lot of class in that area, in those areas. And the towns it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I can fully explain it, but it's like all these towns, a lot of these towns in these counties that I like a lot, your Moultrie, your Bainbridge, your Thomasville, your Americus. It's like they're self-sustaining towns. They're not like, I don't know. They have strong communities that kind of keep them afloat, but they kind of support. They're able to support themselves and standing alone. But I love the big sunsets, man, big sky. I love the pecan and peanut farming and all that goes on down there. It's untouched in a lot of ways. I love it, man. It's beautiful.
It is. You talk about those big sunsets. It's what I picture. I haven't been to West Texas, but just something you might as well be in West Texas if you're driving down there. Sometimes I get a chance to go deer hunt down there with a buddy, Will Thompson, each and every year, and that's something we look forward to every year. And we're in Blakely right in Blakely, and I know what you mean. It's definitely a different area, but you mentioned Macon too. I mean, you're not far. Well, it's still a haul, but those South Georgia towns. You mentioned Moultrie, Bainbridge. There's a lot to offer, and I know what you mean about being the heart. High school football. That truly just good people, and just you've got one county high school, maybe two. That's real traditional rival. It's almost like Friday Night Lights, and that's one thing I do love about Oconee is the school spirit. I feel like Abby's experienced that already with North Oconee, which we're zoned for Oconee. That's a whole other discussion for another day. But they're experiencing good football, good high school school spirit because they all feed into one high school. All the elementary schools feed into one particular high school. So you're easy. When you have a prep rally where you have school spirit days, there's something to be said about that. In a county where you're the main school in that county, Franklin County, that's a good example of how that's part of the reason we love our state and why all these counties have so much to offer. Even the ones that are a little less traveled, like Southwest Georgia. I'm so glad that you're going to have I hope you know where you're going with Northwest Georgia, hopefully. But I'll throw one out there. You mentioned Monroe, Madison, Morgan County's pretty sweet. Brooks Pennington's been able to show me around some really pretty areas through that region, and that's awesome. And it's a little bit. It's almost like I'm cheating because it's not far from where I live now. But I love a small town. I mean, just I guess back to our Thomasville roots. In Watkinsville, I feel that small town, and you can sit in Athens when you need to. I work in Athens, which takes me 12 minutes to get to work, but it still feels like a small town, and I love that. I love Madison, and I feel like it's growing like crazy. But to me, that's a great place to be right there in Madison. And Monroe for the same reasons, but Madison to me has the edge.
Yeah, I'll close mine out with Rome, Georgia.
Love
Uh,
Rome.
Man,
Love
it's a great spot. I was lucky enough, and I think it was 2008. I was in college, and I actually worked at wind shaped camps for a summer, and that's on the campus of Berry College. And that's like the big reason that that's on my list is just if you haven't been to Berry College, I would encourage you to go and just explore the campus. I mean, it is unbelievable. It, I think it is it the largest campus.
I was about to say, I
in the
think
United
there's
States.
yeah.
But I mean, it's literally it has its own mountain. It's a mountain like the deer run around like dogs. It's just a beautiful area. Really enjoyed being in Rome during that summer.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I thought about putting Rome on the list. I love Rome. It's one of those places too where it's almost like Columbus making Augusta, where it's almost that level of like history too, where it was, back in the day, it was, you could see the wealth and, the economy that was there back in, the antebellum and late 1800s, because that downtown is big and pretty. But yeah, I like Rome a lot too. Thought about putting that on my list, but my last choice is Savannah. I love Savannah. I'm kind of one of these. I've kind of got like a point of Georgia pride with Savannah, where I'm almost tell people, that I think it's a better town than Charleston. I mean, I really think that Savannah, the bones of it, the walkability, the architecture,
Yeah.
it's just, and the live oaks, it's just an incredible town. And Care Beth and I always try to stop in. So many good restaurants. SCAD University has done so many good things to that downtown, and I think it's just going to continue to get better and better. But and there's a little place kind of right near there called Isle of Hope, which I kind of consider Savannah as well. It just looks like something out of a Nicholas Sparks movie. But if you ever get a chance, drive through Isle of Hope. There's just one little road that kind of runs right along I don't know if it's the marsh or whatever it is, but you just feel like you're, in Hollywood or something. It's just an incredible, beautiful, quaint little area. And my wife, she wants to live at the coast one day. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I always kind of think about that too when I'm thinking about where I would like to live. So
Yeah, man, that's a really good take. I had St. Simon's. I know that's already made the list, and it's blown up. I mean, I grew up going to St. Simon's, and the summer it can get a little bit too busy, but a lot of good memories. I mean, Georgia, Florida, obviously going down there to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. But St. Simon's and some of the other months that aren't the heavy tourist months, I feel like that would be really cool to have a place over there. We mentioned talk about gnats. I mean, good lord, um, several of these places are definitely gnat heavy, but I could get over that and have a jeep down to St. Simons and just that salt air, man. You talk about living on the coast and the low country in general. We go to the Carolina beaches for Mobley's folks, and we had that debate. People that go to the 30A area, they blow it out of the water and say, why would you ever go to the Carolina beaches once you've been to 30A? It's a totally different feel. The beaches, obviously, the white sand beaches, you can't beat. But there's a lot of cool culture in the Low Country, Carolinas, and obviously Georgia that we've hit on. But man, this was a cool discussion, and Derek, we obviously value your opinion. I hope we get some comments about. I've got a bunch of buddies that live in Columbus, and you can make an argument for several other places. I mean,
yeah,
Daniel and I growing up in Augusta's got a lot to offer too. So there's obviously going to be some contention, but I think that's a good thing. I think that's why we live in a great state, and I love that there's different pockets, and our discussion covered each region of the state, and we're obviously partial because we live kind of in this region too, and a lot of them were a little low hanging fruit to pick. But I love that the Rome, the Southwest Georgia discussion. I love that, and we love Georgia, and you guys really promoted that with your brand. And I think I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but I just really respect how you guys have built your brand and how you have let the business just be an overflow of your personal life. I really admire that from a leadership standpoint. and how you guys have built your brand, but also promoted the state. And really, I mean, it's really true to how you started and your vision for the brand, because I feel like people have responded to that well. Of hey, if you're from Washington, man, there's a lot of pride there. You know, there's people are proud where they come from. And there's every county in Georgia's got something to offer, and that's what makes it such a diverse and unique state. You think about um, how each the Piedmont, the coastal plain, the North Georgia mountains are they're very different. And I think that's what's unique about Georgia is such variety in the land. And you know, we just want to encourage our listeners to get out there and to experience some of these places and buy some Peach State Pride while you're at it. Absolutely. But man, just thanks so much for coming on here. And I just really enjoyed it and really admire you and Carrie Beth and y'all's marriage, the way you're leading your family and the way you're balancing, you know, love and serving them, but also having a successful business. I really admire that. And it's been cool to see that over the years, but also be a part of that. Feel like you've done a good job of including your friends, including people into that mission and that opportunity of building your brand. We feel like we've got some. If there was stock in it, I bought stock a long time ago, and I feel like I would still invest because you guys are still going to do great things, and we're excited to watch that, and we're excited to hit up all those warehouse sales that you guys are offering. So appreciate you, man. Any closing thoughts? Anything you wanted
to? No, man, thank you so much. Enjoyed it. I love just getting to sit and chat a little bit, and you know, hopefully, you know, people that are watching that don't know, you know, Peach State Pride or know who I am, which I'm sure there'll be plenty of people out there. But you know, like you said, I mean, we kind of just try to run our business the way you know, we feel like God wants us to do it. And each and every day we pray about that, and we you know, we support each other in that way, and we try to uphold the values of you know, that we stand for and in our business, and try not to get lost in all the different things that this world can throw at you and entice you with. You know, we just try to you know, be the way that God wants us to be with it. So thankful for the opportunity to just chat a little bit. Really love you guys, love y'all's families, and appreciate the opportunity. We didn't talk about Georgia barbecue, so at some point,
Yeah, we need to do those rankings, and we value your opinion. And I will say just one thought on that before we get into that session, because that's a whole nother podcast. We'll have to save some room for later. But I will say, like coming from Augusta, there's a lot of that Carolina. I mean, there's a lot of pride up in that region for the barbecue, the cookouts and stuff that they've got. But we'll use that as a teaser for next time.
Yeah, next time we get you on, we'll do a little barbecue tournament. We'll have a live tasting, and we'll have it in person.
It's all about the sauce. You know this. I mean, it's that's where places separate themselves is the sauce. Yeah. And so, and I love the debate between hickory base or, you know, whether it's
vinegar, mustard.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool debate. I mean, I don't discriminate against any of those.
Georgia's like a crossroads of a lot of different styles of barbecue. You know, there's a lot to debate there. So,
yeah, Scotty Scheffler came out with his master's, you know, his master's menu recently, and I think it was steak and some different things. We'll have to, maybe we can share that on.
Are you going to be at that dinner? I'm planning on going.
Yeah,
He's got black and red fish barbecue. I mean, dude, that obviously hasn't happened yet, but he hit a freaking home run on that menu.
It'd be hard to turn down a ribeye, but I mean, I've always thought about, you know, that's an interesting discussion. Maybe that'll be one of our top fives, you know, moving forward. But a barbecue, kind of a taste of not just Georgia, but maybe you've got some Memphis, maybe you've got some Kansas City, maybe you got some Texas brisket sprinkled in there, and you kind of had a taste, like your menu looked like a taste of the South, and kind of pulled from Carolina, pulled from some of Georgia, you know, and stew, like Brunswick stew versus hash. Like a lot of those Carolina places serve hash. That is one knock against Carolina, in my opinion. I'll eat some hash, but I mean, the stew is where it's at.
Oh yeah,
I'm a rice and hash guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you grew up on. But they put like cornflakes and all the leftover stuff in there. You know, it seems like just filler. You know, so you get full on that. And, you know, I don't know. I'd rather have more barbecue. I'd rather have a little bit of the stew, potato chips, and sweet tea. Anyways, that's making me hungry. But man, thanks so much, Derek. We'll chat with you later. And I appreciate you, man.
All right, guys.
Yeah,
Thank
man,
you.
Thank you. Yep.
What's up, y'all? We really appreciate y'all tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed the content and the conversation that we had with Derek Chitwood of Peach State Pride and Empire South. We got another good one coming for you next week, so y'all tune into that, and just remember you can follow us at Carry the Mat on Instagram. Be sure to like and follow all of our platforms, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks.